talk again about doing something about rear vision, but no mention of the rear-facing camera, incredibly. Well, where are we at now with that?
So, as we understand, the FIA have been speaking to the teams, Charlie White, and then spent some time looking with Vettel about what the rear view was like. Aspects of the side pods and obviously the rear wing, which now has that kind of dogleg shape, is interfering with the mirrors. The teams have got quite a bit of freedom to position the mirrors where they want. Obviously, they're going to position them aerodynamically where they want, not necessarily maybe where the driver likes them, although some teams, particularly McLaren, have very high mirrors, look great for rearward visibility. Nick Tombazes, FI delegate now, has written up a technical directive which was going to be put in place for Singapore, where the mirrors will be placed in a specific position, not just within a window where the teams can play about with them, which in theory should give you much better rearward visibility. But that would require, Motorsport Council decision to make that a rule that the teams would have to follow. So that's been scrapped. So I think there's still talk going on. I think there's going to be a meeting at Hungary in a few weeks about this issue. Where should we place mirrors? What's best? As we've said, we think the best thing is to scrap mirrors completely and just have a rear view camera with a screen somewhere in the cockpit, perhaps on the halo.
And I see on social media that idea has been adopted, and quite a lot of the fans are saying, come on, these are 21st century racing cars, supposedly the most sophisticated on the planet. Why don't we have this?
When this sort of story was bubbling around the last week, lots of people have kind of independently said, well, why just have a rear view camera? It's almost so obvious. Exactly. Why wouldn't you do it? But you also have some other benefits with this, is that, the mirror and its mountings itself are an obstruction for the driver to see out through the cockpit. And that was quite apparent early this season when we had the driver cams, and you could see that the impact of the halo, but equally the impact of the mirrors themselves. And then there's this aerodynamic thing. So Ferrari mounted their mirrors on the halo, but added this, kind of cheeky extra wing. And there was a technical directive which kind of sparked some of the talk off initially. But then you see people like Mercedes have now modified their mirrors, and they've now got an extra mount, which has nothing to do with the support of the mirror. It's aerodynamic. Ferrari feel aggrieved that they lost their winglet, which I think that decision was right. And at the time, the FIA said, let's look at the aero setup of everyone's mirrors, and you've got people like Red Bull, Force India, now Mercedes, lots of mounts on the mirrors. Let's scrap them, but the way they worded the technical directive was still a bit too woolly, and all of these things are now deemed legal by the FA, which I think is a mistake, and it's one of those things that can be quite easily stamped out.
It's such a difficult one, isn't it? The reality is the mirror is absolutely critical, and if you think back to the early 70s, I think it was the March 721 had sort of stalks like this, and the mirrors are up here, and it was as if the rest of the car had been designed around the mirrors, because rear vision is considered to be so important, and correctly so. The problem now, of course, is the advent of the halo, because even if you took that stance, and that's obviously only hypothetical, you couldn't do it because of the halo. That is the problem now, and this is another issue that the halo is now a part of, inadvertently, which Formula One has to try to sort out. The only solution, I really think, is going to be rearward-facing cameras, but I don't know why it's taking them so long to come to that conclusion.
I think it's one of these things. There's lots going in Formula One at the moment. Is where do you prioritise some of this stuff?
Well, this is a priority because it's safety.
And
it's cool.
And it's cool. And I think, it just sometimes shows there's that lack of joined up thinking sometimes in the regulations, in how the regulations are applied. And hopefully this talk about mirrors will come to some kind of longer term agreement where they're going to place them right now, and then in the future put them somewhere where, they really will have the benefits so the driver can see what's going on.